Hello and welcome to today's 5-Minute Friday for what is the last in the season. And I'm delighted to be joined today by Michael Whitfield, who I co-founded Thomsons Online Benefits, now known as Darwin, back in 2000. A great friend, somebody I hugely respect and continue to work with in the Pink Investment Club, where we're investing into young, sexy HR tech startups. And Michael, thank you so much for joining me today. I really wanted to use this session as an opportunity to explore what you have learned from both founding Thomson some 20 years ago and more recently through investing into startups around what makes startups and companies grow and where do you see them failing and why. So let's just get straight into it. So let's start off by looking at when you're looking at a company to invest into, what is it you look for and to make you think, yeah, this is a company where I believe it's got the ingredients to make it successful?
Well, I think let's first of all, Chris, thanks for inviting me onto this. I always like to go on stage with you, as you know. It's a shame we can't be doing this face to face. Otherwise, it would be you'd be getting up to your normal antics with me. But look, let's talk about the environment we're in first. We'll talk about what we look at. In the world we're in today, it's so much easier for companies in some respects to set up and start up, and the UK is still a vibrant hotbed all over the UK for those startups, and that's exciting for you and I, isn't it? And when we look at the opportunities really out there. In terms of what we look for, I think when you and I sat down a few years ago to think about how we were going to find companies to invest in, it was really quite straightforward. And you and I were both disruptive in what we did, whether it was at school when we were both at school together, well, not together, but when we were both at school being disruptors, and in business. And so we wanted businesses that could disrupt. We wanted businesses that could scale. And fundamentally, we wanted businesses that actually were technology driven, because that's where we came from in what we did with Thomsons when we started all those years ago. So and when we started on that journey, we sort of had a good idea about what those businesses might look like. But along the way, we've learned an awful lot, I think. And that's where you and I are today. But there's one fundamental that hasn't changed, which was absolutely core and key to everything that we wanted, both at Thomsons and in our life together as investors, which is people. It's the people, the founders of the business, that make the difference. First, second, third, and fourth. If the founders aren't right in the business and they're not working well together, it doesn't matter how great the clients are, how great the tech is, how great the business idea is, it won't succeed in the same way if the founders aren't absolutely on point. And I think we've learned that. And I don't know whether you'd agree with that, but I think that's the fundamental.
I totally agree, Michael. I think that actually coming up with the idea is the easy bit. And to an extent, raising the money is the easy bit. The difficult bit is actually executing. And what I think we've seen is the stark difference between the founders who can and the founders who can't. And I'd like to explore with you a bit now about why do some founders can and why some founders can't. So what are the things you think founders have got that can?
Well, there's firstly, I think there's a clue in the phrase you just used there, founders, not founder. That's one thing we fundamentally learned, is that you cannot have, I don't think, a business in its early stages with just all of the weight on one person's shoulders. You need to have founders, either certainly more than one, two, three, four, maybe too many. But ideally, it would be, as you and I did, the yin and yang of having two founders who are complementary disruptors with complementary skills are very likely to succeed more than one person, because it's just too much weight. You can't actually talk to each other and find out what's and share your pain and share all the ideas you've got and actually have somebody act as balance for you. So you start out with two people, I think, is a minimum. And secondly, I think you have to have an unwavering belief in yourself and the idea. So as a business, you and I always felt that we were, when everybody else was saying no, we were going, right, well, we're actually going to make sure this happens. And the more people said no to us, the more motivated we were. And the journey as a founder is, and a startup is hard. And I have to say, there are many people that say no to you along the way, as we both know, and the founders in our portfolio know too. So you've got to be incredibly resilient and incredibly resolute in pursuing your dream and vision and passion, and never give up. So I think that's another quality I'd look for. Would you agree with that?
I totally. I think that as I think of reflect on our own experience, and I reflect on the companies that we've worked with, you've got to be used to, you've got to expect that people are going to say no, and they're going to put you down. And you and I over the years have laughed about some of the people who were so dismissive of us and our idea and what we were trying to do. But you take it as almost fuel. It's another person to prove wrong.
Yes, I remember. I'm not going to say who it was, but I remember somebody when I was at my previous company planning the business with you, said this online stuff will never work for benefits. And I did send him an email where we did the transaction with Mercer. He never responded to it, alas. But the other thing I think is adaptability and flexibility. We've seen with our founders over the last 12 months how impressive they've been in pivoting from a pre-pandemic position to a post-pandemic position, with employees being at home and not in the workspace. And that's really important too. You cannot be rigid in your mindset and just stay to one game plan. If the circumstances around you change as rapidly as they did with COVID last year, you've got to be able to be adaptable and quick and agile too. And nearly all of our businesses have pivoted at some stage. So in those businesses that don't pivot and don't change, and the classic one that you and I always think about is Kodak here. Brilliant, dominated the market space, but didn't embrace digital. And we all know what happened to that brand. So from my point of view, it's that adaptability and flexibility that allows a founder, and in a startup situation, to make sure their business continually evolves to take advantage of where the market is.
And what about leadership skills? So ability then to actually bring a team along and to get people to believe in the business and for them to be resilient.
Well, this is a whole nother podcast, isn't it? And because it's going to link, as you know, what I'm going to talk about here being culture. The leadership of the business is more than crucial. It is, if the leadership of the business isn't strong and inspiring, and it sets down the standards and behaviors for the rest of the employees to follow, then I think the business will really struggle. And we've both seen that happen within not our portfolio, but also other businesses too. And again, without naming names, where you've got toxic leadership, and we've all seen this in businesses, in big businesses out there, the businesses often fall foul. And we don't want that within the portfolio. So I think we can identify that quite quickly. But the leadership sets the tone, sets the culture of the business to a certain extent. I know some people say that what values come first, then culture. I don't believe that. I think think it can work both ways. And I think the leaders are absolutely instrumental in setting the tone and the direction of that business from the beginning that other people can follow. So I said at the beginning, I think people are fundamental to how a startup is going to succeed. And the way that the business reacts and changes and pivots, as I said, during things like the pandemic, is all driven by the leadership and how it inspires people to come and join them. And you always talk about, you're either on the bus or not on the bus. That's what makes people want to get on the bus, is the leadership of the business.
And Michael, that point that you made around how the leadership team work I think is really interesting, because I think over the years that certainly within Thomsons, we would see different teams that we had, and we saw them excel or not excel, often based on how the leaders of those teams work together. And we see it in the portfolio companies. You can go and have a drink with some leaders, and you just get a sense as to fundamentally how connected are these people, and how much do they want, how much they respect each other and trust each other, and want to work together for the overall good of the business, as opposed to working for their own agenda.
Sure. Yeah, look, I think it can be quite a lonely journey being a leader of a business, and that's again I think why you need more than one person that's driving that's founded the business and driving the startup, and you have to be on your game the whole time. It isn't, leadership isn't just for Christmas; it's for life. And if you're the leader of that business, you have to be on it the whole time, because people people will feel what's going on inside the business. They'll see how you behave. They'll see about your commitment and your tonality with other employees and things like that. So it is critical. And I think too many businesses, they worry too much about the making sure that all the process documents are ticked and making sure that all the legal process is in place, which is absolutely right. But they forget about how to lead their employees out in a situation, and they forget about the messaging that they're supposed to be using, as in reinforcing the culture of the business and the values of the business. And if they go off piste and they don't follow those behaviours, then other employees will follow, and then you have it all begins to unravel. So I can't tell you how important that is. And the thing that I think you and I enjoy the most is working with our founders, the leaders of those businesses, to help guide them through the things we did well, but also the many things we didn't do quite so well, which I think you and I learned more from almost than the things we did do well.
Totally. And so on that note, Michael, I know that LinkedIn will be about to cut us off.
Yes.
And so you always used to take the mickey out of me for my sort of love of reading the latest business book. And so I'm going to finish this podcast series off by asking Michael, what one book should I be reading this summer, or would you recommend other people read this summer?
Wow. A new book or an old book?
An old book, any book.
Well, when in doubt, I always go back to Clive Woolward's book on the 2003 World Cup and the preparations for that. And as a rugby guy, I think that the way that we prepared in such a professional way to win that competition, and the small things he did to encourage that team to go the extra mile, was quite amazing, and will be inspirational even to non-rugby lovers. So that would be my summer reading for you.
Brilliant. Michael, I will order the book. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you very much. Good to see you, Chris.